Okay, so since that section was like a different type of section, let me show you one where it's a little bit easier. So here is this one, the section, what items do people use in the morning, complete each sentence with the appropriate verb. So now if I click on edit, we're going to see that we can see the text right here of the question. Los niños se lavan las manos con él. And then right here, when it says the blank, this is the correct answer. So if you wanted to change this to something else, you could edit this right here, just boom, 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 and change it to los niños se cepillan los dientes con el cepillo de dientes. So now that question is a completely different question than it was before. I can preview it. Los niños se cepillan los dientes con él, and there's a blank. So now I've changed the question and save and close it. So as a review, you can change the points quickly. You can edit the entire question like I just did right there. Sometimes, especially with the essay ones, you'll click here and you'll notice that there is no point system to change. So you're going to have to go into the question itself under edit. Let me make this bigger. And because this is an essay question, that's why this system looks different when I go into edit. So you'll notice we have the question title, the instructions were there, and there's this little thing that says add text settings. So if you click add text settings, now you can see that it says maximum score. So I can change it. Let's say my essay is 15 points. I can save that and save and close. And now it's worth 15 points. So it's not as easy as just clicking here and changing the points, but it is a way to change the points. So let's say I've created my test in the test creator. I've now gone into this editing. I've changed all the points to the number of points that I'd like. I've edited any questions that I want to change the answer to or change one specific question. Instead of just deleting it, I was like, I like 4 of these 5 questions, but this 5th question I don't like, I'm going to change it. You can do that using this mechanism right here. So we're going to save and close. And then our next thing is help links. Nothing we need to use. Messages, also nothing we need to use. Grades, again, all these are just things that are more advanced that we don't need to use. I'm just showing them to you because, so if you wonder what each one is. I could also go to save and continue. Now, preferences, however, we are going to want to take a look at. Because this is where we're going to set all of the details for our test. So I'm going to go through these and show you what I choose, and then you can decide whether you want them for your test as well. But these I leave open. You don't want to let students skip questions. You can allow students to skip pages because the test is going to come on multiple pages, so that way they can jump back and forth in the test, so that's good. We're not submitting each individual question one at a time. So this section, this says require students to answer all questions. Your instinct is to leave that checked, but I would suggest unchecking it. I used to deliver, I did an experiment where I delivered online tests, but in the lab. I gave it to see how that would work. and there were a couple times where there was a browser glitch and it locks the student out of the browser, and they were not able to just submit their test and let me give them the points because it required them to answer all questions. So I've now unchecked that. They still will need to answer all the questions, but this just doesn't force them to do it before they can submit the test. This is fine. Direction line on text on each page. Yes, you'd like them to know how many points are for each question. This one leave unchecked because in the student's results view, you probably are going to want them to see what their results are. If you want to see what their answers are at the end, I'm going to show you how you do that again. This is nothing that I use. Columns are fine. Narrative. Obviously, disable browser translation. Enable lockdown browser. That causes some technical issues if you have that locked down, so I would not leave that checked. Allow students to save later. Save for later. If you're going to time your test, then maybe they are able to save it and come back to it. So perhaps leave that or check that. Restrict student from reviewing and changing saved answers. You don't want to do that if they're saving for later. Specify number of attempts. Again, your instinct is going to be want to leave it at 1. However, if there is some sort of browser issue and their test gets submitted accidentally, then if you want to give them another chance to do it, you're going to have to come in here and change this anyway. So I have been setting it 2. Anybody who wants to, they're using their own materials. So anyone who wants to take it twice, I'm like, you know what? I don't have a problem with that, but you can decide. You don't want to show hints. Tools, I'm just jumping. Shuffling order of sections that may or may not be important to you. Restart numbering, I did that just so they could see 1, 2, 3, how many questions in each one. These checkboxes just give a warning box to let them know if there's manual, graded, or multimedia. Enable late submissions just allows them to submit. Grace period is what I normally have for regular activities, but I'm not allowing grace period for this. So you could maybe check that they can't turn it in late. So if they don't turn it in, they don't get credit. Now down here, you'll see that there's timing. So the timing you're going to enforce at the activity level, which is the entire activity. And then at this point, you can decide how long you want them to take the test. So I am giving my students 1 hour and 30 minutes to take the test, and they're going to get a warning at 10 minutes. So that way they know they're almost done. Grading, highest grade, that's if you have multiple ones. Threshold, you can check that if you don't really care about that. And then students will be identified, keep that checked. Feedback. So you want them to be able to see the summary and display the correct answers after they submit the activity. However, you don't want them to see that as soon as they submit. You want them to see it maybe after the due date. So what I have mine checked in is correct answer at or after the due date. So if I set the due date for midnight on a Monday, then they submit it, they won't see the answers until after midnight. So that way it reduces the idea that they may see the correct answers and then pass them on to someone else. And then you're going to display their feedback and correct answers, but only after the due date. So I'm done. So I'm saving and returning. So now all of those settings that we just did are embedded in this video example test right here. So your test is now ready to assign. So if you go to assignment calendar, I'm going to close out so I can be back in the regular my Spanish lab. Okay, so here I'm in my Spanish lab. You can go to assign course materials. And you'll notice when we go to assign course materials, where is my test? It's not there yet. because it's still living in this invisible folder. So I need to go to Manage Course Materials. And you'll notice it says Discover an assignment from the library. So I'm going to click Add Assignments. And now you see my test folder. I can open up my test folder, find the test I just did, and add to my course. So when I add that to my course, I have to choose where I'm going to add it. So I've gone in and I've created a folder by clicking folder that's called imported material. That's so I know where to find it. So when I click on that, you can see I already have my test there. So now I can add to my course. And now that exam appears in this folder. You can close it. Go back to Assign Course Materials. And scroll down. Here's the imported material folder. And here's a video example test. So I would select the video example test just like any activity, and I would drag it to the day that the test is going to be assigned. So it will now appear on the screen. But what I want to do now is set access to my students because it's just treating it as a regular assignment at this point. So I need to go to Assignment Properties. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to restrict the availability. And so I've decided my students are going to have 12-hour window to take it. So on this day, it is available from 12 o'clock p.m. until 11:59 p.m. on the same day. Okay. And I could have done that too right here. It ties them together there. Okay, so that is how that looks. You can decide to show it to students but prevent them from opening it before or after the dates, so that way they know it's coming. Show availability notification with calendars tells them when it's available. It's available to all students, and you can then, you wouldn't want to restrict access. If you really want to have a password, you could, but for an extra level, but there's really no point here. What is this My Available make item available? You can, if you have students who are DSPS students and need extra time, go over to where we just created the test, copy the test, so it's the same exact test, and then assign it again on the calendar, but now you can choose who it's assigned to, right? And make it available to that student, and then change the time, or change the time that it's available. In the test itself, where we were doing the editing before, you can change they have 3 hours to do it. So then you'd want to assign this regular test to everybody except that DSPS student, and then assign the test with the longer time period, 3 hours, for example, to just this one. It's a little bit more complicated, and I'm happy to show people how to do that if you can't figure it out. Okay, so that is how to create and assign tests in my Spanish lab. Let me know if you have any questions.